Friends, I think you all know the familiar face sitting beside me is none other than our very own Dr. Samuel Ong. Samuel Ong and his families were our KL Wesley members before, although he originated from Taiping, I believe, and he grew up in Taiping Wesley, our Methodist Church, faithful Methodist members family. His brother Daniel Ong is one of the leaders in Christ Methodist Church Ampang. We know the family very well. We're proud of him, and today we have specially invited him because today we want to reach out to some of our colleagues and friends who are working in the office. And so Sam is a cardiologist who works with a full-time profession, and he's married to the dear wife who is a pediatrician. Together they have 3 lovely daughters who love the Lord very much. And so without much ado, I would like you to put your hand together to welcome Dr. Samuel Ong.
Morning. Let's pray. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, O Lord, our rock and our redeemer. Amen. Wonder what it is like for you when it comes to sermon time. For some people, they take out their notes and their pen to write. For some now, they're going to see, now what has this guy got to say to us? For others, it's time to go to sleep. I'm not sure which category you belong to, but it doesn't matter to me. I'm only a mouthpiece for God. And I hope that this morning as I speak, God will speak to you. I want to talk about Jesus. Many of us here are followers of Jesus and we are Christians and we take him for granted. We assume we know him. And I think many of you do know him and know him very well and know him even much better than I do. What do you think does the world think of Jesus? If you walked on the streets down Petaling Street and you ask, stand at the street corner down there and you say, we are doing an interview and we just want to ask people, as everybody walks by, you ask, who is Jesus? What do you think the answers would be? What would you get? I think in this day and age, the answer would be, who? Never heard of him. I think most people would say probably they don't know who Jesus is. Maybe 50 years ago it's slightly different. The mission schools and so on. So at least they would have heard, Jesus, the ones that Christians believe in and so on and so forth. But I think we cannot assume that the world knows who Jesus is. And much of what they know about Jesus is, not from good sources, right sources. They hear from bad sources, Never heard of him would probably be the most common answer we've heard. Some even think that he would be a fictitious character. Some movie, X-Men, Avengers, next movie that's going to show. Or some guy with a long beard and flowing robe who walked around at some wedding, kept the bottle of wine in his pocket. And then when there was no more water, he took out the bottle of wine. No more wine, he took out the bottle and said, see, he did a miracle. Actually, it was a bluff miracle then. But for many of us, some people say Jesus is a good man. Yeah, he's got good teachings. For some people, Jesus is a swear word, right? It's a bad word. They use it like, you know what I mean. But for many of us, Jesus is the Son of God. For some of the majority religion in this country, for them, Jesus, they have heard of Jesus. They know who Jesus is. But for them, Jesus is just a prophet. Somebody they look up to, but nothing more than that. So, I want to ask the question, who is Jesus today? What does he mean to you? What does he mean to me? Or what should he mean to us? But maybe even before we get to that question, we should ask the question, did Jesus exist? Because some people say he never existed. And I think it's important to establish that Jesus was a real person, was a historical figure, not a fictitious character, not a legend, not a myth that we have concocted, we have created so that we can follow somebody. I think we have evidence from both outside the New Testament and inside the New Testament that Jesus really did exist. If you look at the evidence outside the New Testament, we have Roman historians like Tacitus and Suetonius who wrote about him. But I think the name that comes to mind mostly is a guy called Josephus. Josephus was a Jew. He was not a Christian. He was not a Jesus follower even. But he lived during the time of Jesus, and he was a historian. And he wrote about Jesus, and this is what he had to say about Jesus. Now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man. For he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as received the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men amongst us, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at first did not forsake him, for he appeared to them alive again the third day, as the divine prophets had foretold these and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him. And the tribe of Christians so named after him are not extinct at this day. The historians of his day acknowledged that there was such a person called Jesus, that he did such things. They may not even have followed him or chosen to be his followers. What about evidence from the New Testament? For us as Christians, you know, what we know about Jesus comes from our source book. And our source book is our Bible, right? You discredit the Bible, you say the Bible is not reliable, finish, gone, kaput, everything gone. So